Hello, Governor. Or at least that's what the Georgia Bulldogs will be saying this Saturday between the hedges at 3:30. I hope you guys are ready to have your blood sugar spiked because this is week 2 of cupcakes for our Georgia Bulldogs. I'm Keegan, my co-host is Chito, and this is another episode of Dawgs Off The Leash.
I do it for the
Hello,
dogs.
governor. I love it.
Do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs.
It's nice to have these two, and we can call them cupcakes. I don't think that's being super disrespectful. It is what it is. It's nice to kind of have this kind of light, upbeat type of tempo going in these first 2 weeks because we know that these teams they're just overmatched, right? It is what it is, but at the same time, it's going to allow us to kind of get a taste of what we can expect when the matchups get bigger, when the talent gap gets smaller, when we go to Tennessee, right? Obviously, there's going to be some things change, but this team's coming off a pretty big win of Middle Tennessee State last week. So they're kind of riding high. So this should be at least a step up as far as like, they've found something as far as like themselves and their identity.
Yeah, there seems to be a number of people who probably know more than me who think that Austin Peay is a better team than Marshall that we played last week. But very similarly, we're talking about a team with 50 transfers. Austin Peay's got 23 freshmen, so a lot of new faces, not a ton of continuity. And even though maybe they have a couple of more marquee transfers for an Austin Peay program, so I guess the parity really goes deep when it comes to what college football looks like nowadays. It's still a team that's completely overmatched. And I know, this is actually the second time that we've covered an Austin Peay game, even though we've only played Austin Peay twice in the collective history of these two schools. So that was 2018. Final score, Dogs on top, 45 to zip. I think we titled the episode infamously Austin Peay's sitting down. So, I don't
Yeah, I remember that
know.
one.
I don't know how lazy we want to be in our titling of this pod. Maybe the listeners will have caught a glimpse of an interesting title by the time it reaches you guys' ears or eyes.
Yeah,
But
I just wanted to say another little piece on Austin Peay. You mentioned they're from North Tennessee. It's about an hour past Nashville if you're going up 25. And their head coach is in his second year, and Jeff Ferris. And I mentioned that they beat Middle Tennessee State, another team that we've covered before. What I didn't know was that Middle Tennessee State is actually coached by Derek Mason now, the old coach from Vanderbilt. So a well-coached team who got upset by, every sense of the word this week, especially by the talent level FCS. They're from the Ohio Valley Conference, which is, kind of a tier down, but the quarterback's nice. You watched the film from last week. He's given Kyler Murray type of vibes, man. He slung it around. He's mobile. He had 11 carries in the game, two passing touchdowns early in the first half to jump on Middle Tennessee State, a total for about 140 yards. So I think this is going to be a good test for both the defensive backs and then the edge players going in this week. So again, this is actually really good for this team as we move along this season.
yeah, and I think it sets up well because like a lot of the quarterbacks that we're going to play, while maybe not all of them are quote unquote true dual threat, many of them have that running capability. And we got tested last week, did pretty well. Let's see how we do this week. But it just goes to the communication of the defense. And speaking of communication, one thing I want to see in this week is better communication on the offensive line side of things. Because while I think we have a lot of talent, a lot of dudes who can contribute at a high level. Even if Juan Gaston and Ernest Green are both sitting, which I think they should. Let's rest these guys. Nothing good's going to come of forcing our hand there. But with a little bit of R&R, having a little bit of a shuffle, which doesn't necessarily help the overall communication of one group, but it certainly helps the experience level of the younger guys, which does help to game situations. So it's a little bit of give and take there, but I think that we just have to be communicating on a good level. And what I don't want to see is lollygagging. I saw too many quality plays where, for whatever reason, guys were not continuing to block downfield. Like as an offensive lineman, maybe you got your first assignment. Maybe your first assignment's not there. You got your second assignment. Like you have a third, fourth. Feel like how many guys they got on their roster? How many dudes are on the defense? Like you need to move down, pick the next man up, look downfield for linebackers. Just keep it moving. I posted that one great clip of one Gaston. I know a lot of people in the comments mentioned, hey, yeah, if he kept his head up, got the next block and the next block, that could have been an even better look, even better take, which, is kind of the obvious thing there. But I think that the offensive line is just a little bit young, but we're extremely talented. So just got to continue to stay active, keep the feet moving, and just not be caught standing still after. You got to keep going. I want to see blocking downfield. Just like on defense, a good sign for our defense, some of our best years on defense, we saw a lot of game tackling. Dudes just swarming to the football. I think the antecedent offensive equivalent of that is seeing guys just continue to be head hunting, head on a swivel, looking for the next man. That's just like, not only is it good football, it's just good energy. It just shows like we're trying to dominate on both sides. So I really think that'll be good if we can continue some of that stuff.
Yeah, and if you haven't had a chance on the website, Keegan dropped a new article, and I thought one of the better points that you made, you were referencing the offensive line, but I think it really goes across the board defense as well, because there were a lot of good things that we saw on Saturday. Yes, it was Marshall, but that consistency is what we need to start building now, those habits. And something kind of cool happened this week. I was on Twitter following Ratty Nabolsi, and he's one of the beat writers for Georgia, one of the more well-known ones. He was in the press conference with Kirby, and he was taking questions or asking what question should he ask Kirby. So I was like, coaches always talk about that week 1 to week 2 jump. Nick Saban had even talked about it on College Football Live after Alabama got just dominated by Florida State. So a lot of teams who lost week 1 are going to have an opportunity to bounce back. And he asked Kirby that question, and Kirby followed up with something that leans into that consistency. He said he wanted the players to work on the process over the results. Now, if you've watched the Kirby presser, you're not going to get a whole lot of elaborate answers from him. And this wasn't one either, but it was actually more telling than I thought it was, because it's just about doing the right things regardless of your opponent, making the right blocks, the right reads. As a running back, seeing the right gap to run into. As a quarterback, you need to be going through your progressions the same way. As a wide receiver, run the right routes at the right depth, block the right person. As a defender, shedding blocks, playing your gap, all of those things. If you can do that consistently against lesser opponents, you have a chance to do that against more talented opponents. But if you can't do it against the lesser guys, you have no chance of doing it when we go to Knoxville. You have no chance of doing that when Alabama comes to town, when they're going to be pissed off because they're not having the season that they want. So I thought it was really cool to get Kirby to answer a question that, this podcast kind of brought up, but it's absolute facts. It's just about the consistency at practice, in games, week to week, regardless of your opponent.
Yeah, and you can apply that to a lot of things. I know I had a great sales mentor in car sales, and if Mr. Mike, how about that? I'll cut the last name. Mr. Mike, if you're watching, you know that you taught me some good things, but he sat me down in this a mentor moment, and he kind of had his hand out, and he's like, "Look, man, right here's what you want. This is car sales." And for those who are watching, you're actually going to be able to see me give this demonstration, but this is the outcome you want, the car sales. But to get this, you have to call people, you have to study the product, you have to talk nicely, you have to do the emails, the said prerequisites to get this. So even though you want this, I'm holding my thumb out for as in results, you have these other things that you really need to focus on to get that. And I think that Kirby is just really talking in those terms. You want to be on your weight loss journey. One thing I do on the side is just help people with weight loss. Like you want to be focused on the diet, the exercise, the stress levels, these obvious things. But if you just continue to focus on the scale, while it will be one facet of results, it's just not telling the whole picture. So Kirby knows he's process oriented, but he learned it from Nick Saban. Maybe he learned it from his dad, maybe he learned it from Jim Donnan, Mark Rick, Bobby Bowden, all these great coaches. But at the end of the day, he knows what it takes to play championship ball. And you compare this, and I'm working on a piece right now, A Tale of Two Cultures. You know, you compare this with Alabama. I think Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. I'm not a football coach. Would I be that successful
Yeah.
building certain programs up like Kalen? Maybe if I, maybe I don't know, but the thing is Kalen has done that, so he deserves the credit. He deserves the respect. But to do it in the SEC is just another beast because we talk about parity.
And
Well,
I think it's important to note what you're talking about is very important, especially in the era of NIL, right? No, gone are the days to where you have these kids for at least 3 years for the most part, right? Barring some extenuating circumstance where they have to transfer across the country for family or injury or whatever the case is. Your your culture means so much more now with the money that's being thrown at these kids, with honestly social media as well too. Like you have to make sure that these kids understand. And we all know when you're 18 you think you know everything, then when you're 25 you think you know everything, and then when you're 30 you think you know everything. Like it is a long process. These are just kids really at the end of the day, and focusing on the things that matter now goes a long way. And we're going to hear story after story after story in this NIL era where a kid really lost a great opportunity because money or his agent or his parents or somebody acted out because of the bag. It's going to happen. That's how money works. But I think that's going to be a great piece whenever you write it. And it's more crucial now than it probably has been in college football ever before.
that's a great point because just like there are levels in the SEC, which was what I was trying to kind of get at, is like because there's those levels, it's even more important, like you're saying, to have a good culture because it's higher expectations, more pressure, more money, more like anything that there is at a certain level, let's say at a Washington, that you have to deal with managing your program, not the X's and O's of the football, but just the outside noise. Like that in itself is part of being a head coach. And there's so much more of that at Alabama that it takes someone who's really like there are different types of personalities in college football, and there's different ways of being successful, absolutely. But have we really seen that many loosey goosey elite coaches? And I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer is fully loosey goosey, but he's a little bit more of a player's coach completely compared to like Nick Saban, which Nick Saban, maybe he ran a little bit too tight of a ship, but like, do we have examples? I'm like, serious question, because maybe that's like a knock on Mark Rick. Maybe that's a knock on,
You're saying it right there. You're laying out the evidence for and against. In my opinion, it's not that coaches can't be loosey goosey. It's just that structure that a Nick Saban, that a dude at UNC now. Obviously, he's struggling now, but when he was with the Patriots, Bill Belichick, you know, crushing it. You've got your NBA coaches. You can go from Red Auerbach to uh, Phil Jackson. Like Phil Jackson's probably the most woo woo, but at the same time, it's structure. It's the players that you have as well. Let's not give credit to these players. It's just right now, sports in general is just different. Let's take it to the level of just fame too. I'd much rather, if I was going to be famous back in the 20s or the 50s or whatever than now. It's just a different ball game. And that these athletes, they're celebrities on campus now, right? You get big egos, pride, all of it. So it's a big bag of stuff. And actually, I'm really looking forward to this article that you're going to write, because I think it really is going to kind of address a lot of these problems.
well, it's just crazy to see because, like, with all the hype around Kalen DeBoer, it's just a lot to manage. It's not necessarily fair to him either because I thought he kind of inherited a Nick Saban coach team. This schedule set up to be way tougher, but
I
the
said if
worst
you
thing,
got hired, though, you never want to be the guy after the guy. I said that a long time ago, and that's kind of just how it goes. It'll be the next coach, whether it's a John Gruden or Dan Lanning or something like that, that will have the success. I don't think this coach is built for this program in this era. I'm not seeing it. But hey, it's a long season. Don't count them out because we ain't played them yet. If we beat them, then y'all go crazy. Y'all do your thing. But until then, like, I'm off that. So, as we're talking about Bama, they fell. They fell hard in the rankings. The newest AP poll dropped them down to number 21, one spot ahead of Tennessee, who I thought had one of the better wins in the SEC last week over Syracuse. Maybe I'm missing something, but yeah. So Tennessee 22, Bama 21, Clemson fell to number 8, Texas fell to number 7, LSU ends up jumping us at number 3. Granted, they won on the road. I'll give them that. I have no problem. We haven't played anybody and we actually jumped a spot. So, take it for what it is. But we talked a little bit about the 4 potential teams who we thought were going to make the SEC championship. And, I picked Georgia, LSU, Texas, and Bama. Right now, looking at the rankings, you have LSU number 3, Georgia number 4, Texas at 7, and Bama in the back. So even though SEC play hasn't started, you can kind of start to look at LSU and Georgia probably being the favorites. Don't get too crazy with that because we still have yet to play Texas. We still have yet to play Alabama and LSU in their schedule. But picking LSU and Georgia, if you pick those 2 to make it to Atlanta, you're feeling pretty good right now after week 1, which doesn't mean anything, but hey, here we are.
Yeah, and in a world where quarterback play is so important, you got a veteran quarterback at LSU, and Gunnar Stockton looks to be poised to kind of break out of being under the shadows of all these other quarterbacks he's been sitting behind. So I think that has a big part, a bit that I think that is a big part of it. And not to mention, we know these rosters are deep. LSU has done a really good job adding pieces. I mean, they're dangerous.
They
They
are.
could
I
be
just didn't think it was going to come together so fast. That was my thing against Clemson, but hey, they made it work. Shout out to them.
made it work, and there's an argument that they could be this year's like Ohio State. There's probably a few teams kind of in that category of wow, they really added a bunch of people. I think Ole
They
Miss.
could be that. They could be that LSU team that kind of came out of nowhere with Joe Burrow too. Like looking at that roster now, you see NFL talent all over. But golly, they did come out of left field a little bit. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least.
So Georgia's defense in its best years caused the havoc, but more so when they were on the field with how they limited teams from scoring and how occasionally they themselves would score. If Georgia can be anything close to some of those greater defenses and being an offense, basically, scoring here and there, but we saw it with the KJ Bolden blocks, some of those special teams. But I'm talking about these defensive type of plays that can be that can give us some wiggle room, especially if let's say that we're just a pretty damn good offense. I think we might be elite, but let's say Marshall, Austin Peay, we're not quite as good as we think, but our defense can be every bit as good as it looked in the Marshall game, especially that first team. I mean, you don't need a perfect team. You just need what you need. So that could be our recipe to a championship. And I think Georgia's defense is set up to do that. So we'll continue that theme. But Cheeto, I think that brings us to a score prediction. 45 to nothing last time.
Yeah. So, and I love all the points that you made. I'm feeling better about my season long prediction for Georgia as 11-1. I'm feeling better about that every day. It's too early to get too excited, but like you're saying, this defense looks like it's the real deal. And I don't think we've pulled out half of the stuff that we have on offense. We definitely haven't got Noah Thomas and Colby Young going. So I think this is probably another week, and probably even more importantly, that we focus on health this week. I'm going to be kind of modest with my score prediction. I think the defense struggles maybe a little bit early with this quarterback from Austin Peay and Chris Parson. I'm going to go 41-10, an easy win, a solid win, nothing crazy. But as far as spread goes, I'm not sure what the spread is this week, but I think it's going to be just a little bit closer than people think. But we get out of this game healthy. Twos play a lot, threes play a lot, and we move on to SEC play.
All right. I like it. So I consider this team to be up there with some of the better ones, and I want to get I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think that we can put up a 50 to 3 point win against Austin Peay. 45 to zip last time, improved defense this time, improved Austin Peay though, so got to give them some credit. And I want to see Ryan Puglisi Elias Williams, Sokovie White, Ryan Montgomery, maybe Coulter Jen, even. Like, let's go deep in the roster. Let's keep some of these players on our team happy because I think the more that we can get guys succeeding on the football field who have put in the work, not only does it just help the culture and the energy of this team, helps the mood of the whole locker room. Because if you only have the top 22 guys playing, I mean, granted, you can be happy as hell at the very bottom of the roster, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt to play. Doesn't hurt your mood to play and see the field a little bit. So I think that is just good for morale, and it helps our team from being, such a transfer laden place. Like, let's give these guys some game tape. You did that at Georgia. Georgia game tape's got to be better than secondary rate, whatever school game tape where you're getting more minutes or what have you. So anyway, 50-3 is my score prediction there. But Chito, that brings us to drumroll to our legendary.
It's time.
Okay, it's time for our pick six. Chito, who do you have in some of these not as marquee as last week matchups?
It's not a popping week, but we do have an SEC matchup in week 2. So let's start with that one. We've got number 20 Ole Miss heading to Lexington to face Kentucky. I believe both teams won their games in week 1, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
Who you got? Who you like?
Kentucky running the ball and their defense on the road is going to give Ole Miss fits. If they pull it out, it's going to be close, but give me Kentucky, actually. Calzada isn't great, but he's a little bit more seasoned than if Simmons is running the ball a lot and using his legs, then I think it will be a closer ball game. I think this is going to be one of the better games of the weekend, but I actually think Kentucky sets up well to edge out Ole Miss. Even though Ole Miss is a good team, Kentucky looks better. They were kind of like doo-doo last year. I think they actually got a good bit better. What do you think, Chito?
You can call them doo-doo if you want, but Kentucky actually beat Ole Miss last year. I think Ole Miss is looking to get their lick back this week. They are the number 20 team, as I mentioned, but Austin Simmons, he could bud into the next, maybe not premier quarterback in the SEC, but in a Lane Kiffin offense, you can do some stuff. He's dual threat. We saw a little bit of him when they beat us, when he came in after Jackson Dart after the game was, I think it was a goal line situation. Don't sleep on Ole Miss this year, but definitely not this week. Give me the upset. Get their lick back in Lexington.
I'm not sleeping on them, but they let Georgia State stick around a little bit too long early, and then throughout that game, let Georgia State have their moments. So it was still a lopsided win, but I wasn't completely convinced with Ole Miss, and we'll see. But another actually pretty big game for a weekend that apparently doesn't have big games. This one's a big one for me, and just a big one historically for college football.
Oh, yeah. Good pick. Okay. Good pick. That's a great one.
Okay. Michigan at Oklahoma. Going to be a fantastic game. A lot of the experts are really leaning on Michigan. I think they have a good team that puts them back this season on the edge of a playoff berth. Maybe they can do it, but I don't like them to come in and beat Oklahoma, and I'll tell you why. Oklahoma has been getting better and better and better under Brett Venables, who has been to the mountaintop. He's got some championship DNA. He did it with Clemson over and over again. He's basically a Kirby Smart, the closest thing to Kirby Smart outside of Kirby Smart. The only difference is he went to a shit show at Oklahoma. He did not inherit a pretty solid off-year program at from Mark Richt at UGA, which had a lot more stability. At Oklahoma, not so much. I think he's gotten these boys turned around, but John Mateer is the real deal. His tape is sick. He was leading all of FBS in some quarterback production categories last season. I think people are sleeping on Oklahoma, and you're on the road, and Brett Venables knows defense. Ask Alabama how this goes. Give me Oklahoma over Michigan. Not in a dominant win, but in a pretty solid, convincing fashion. Chito, are you in concurrence, or are you going blue on that one?
No, I'm going Oklahoma all the way for all the reasons that you listed. But let me just say this right now. Because if Michigan were to win, it's because Bryce Underwood is a beast. I don't think he's going to be that week 2 of his freshman year. But Keegan, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Bryce Underwood is going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft the first year he's eligible. He has all the tools, all the size. He's not played enough yet. But when his time comes, Bryce Underwood is going to be the next. You can call him the next Cam Newton. You can call him the next whatever you want to. He's going to be that guy. He's just not that yet. And the defense of Oklahoma is growing. John Mateer's out here sending Venmos over there. So, like, I feel you, and I'm going right with you, Oklahoma, for the dub. But that's going to be the best game of the weekend, in my opinion. Moving on to game number 3. This one kind of low-key. And unless you watched USF bust up Boise State week 1, South Florida traveling to Florida to face off the number 13 Gators, I think this one's a sleeper. And I think the Bulls, if their pass rush can get going and they can contain Florida's quarterback, DJ Lagway, I think they have a chance to upset the Gators that are ranked ridiculously high. And they're about to go on this run of one of the craziest schedules you have ever seen in college football. So Florida's desperate to get this win because they're probably going to lose the next 4 or 5. But I think this one's an upset alert for Florida. What do you think?
Well, University of South Florida has been a team that has just continued to pop up on people's radars. Like, every year I'm just ready to ignore them, and every year I end up talking about the University of South Florida. So they're doing something right. But I kind of have...
They got athletes down there.
Yeah, we'll see. I like that you've stuck your neck out there. I'm willing to play along, and I'll definitely be paying attention to it now that you said that. So let's check out what South Florida can do. But no, give me Gators in that one personally. And the game I have here, a group of 5 versus SEC game. We got Arizona State traveling to Mississippi State. So this is a kind of a, I wouldn't say awkward out of conference game. Tempe is an awesome place. So if you guys get a chance, check out Arizona State. Tempe's just right outside of Phoenix. Super cool area. Pretty much love it. But I'll say that their football team is it's been lacking for the last decade or so, but Arizona State is privy to a lot of high profile transfers, and they have some money in Arizona State. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but they have basically like them, Grand Canyon University, that's another Arizona online school, maybe the DeVry, but which isn't actually a real school. But Arizona State, I think, has pretty much cornered the market on online school. I don't know if it's a strategy for growing the alumni base, growing all the football fans, but it wouldn't be a bad strategy. But anyway, that said, all the online Arizona people alike, I think it's going to be a close game. I think Mississippi State takes this one, but I actually really like Arizona State to come in and make a splash because they got nothing to lose. Mississippi State kind of sucks, and, you know, it's the transfer portal era, so it'll be a fun game. It'll be a surprising kind of random game that you'll be checking out. But Chito, do we have any smoke on Mississippi State taking an L to Arizona State?
Just coming out of the preseason, I don't know a whole lot about either team. I know Arizona State's coming off a really good season, so I'll just give it to Arizona State in that case. Until Mississippi State shows that they can beat competent opponents, I'm just going to assume that they can. So,
I think
so that's 4. It will. Another game that I thought was really interesting, and any rivalries, you can always count me in. But we got Iowa traveling to Iowa State. The Cyclones are ranked number 16, and maybe I'm a little bit biased. I had a professor in college who was psycho. God bless her. She was funny, but she was psycho. She was a big Iowa State fan. And surprisingly, people in Iowa, and they love their football. Who'd have thought? They love their football, so it's going to be a big weekend for those fans and for the faithful out there. But give me the Cyclones.
What else is going on in Iowa, to be completely frank, just to be fair?
You wouldn't think college football, but hey, they love their teams.
Another game. Oklahoma State at number 6 Oregon. The Cowboys, great program. Mike Gundy, been there forever and a day.
He's 40.
Yeah. I'm a man. That's pretty good. But I like Oregon to roll in this one. There's not a ton of big games. Chito, do you see any drama happening over there in Eugene? None at all. Okay.
No, they lost their running back who killed it last year, who I picked up in some leagues in fantasy, and Ollie Gordon, who was legit. I don't think they have any player near that caliber this year. I'll learn something if they do, but I doubt it.
Do you want to take the next game.
Yeah, and the last two games that I had, we ended up with some different games this week, but I've got Kansas at Missouri. I think that's going to be a good game. I'm going to go Kansas here because I think Missouri's quarterback got hurt in week 1. And then Vandy is traveling to Virginia Tech. South Carolina just put it on Virginia Tech. I expect Vandy to do pretty much the same thing with the same type of playbook.
Yeah, I like Vandy to take Virginia Tech. Any other year we wouldn't be saying that, but with how Virginia Tech has been, out of the two coordinators that left Clemson, Tony Elliott's having an even harder time getting Virginia Tech back to doing something, even in the ACC. So I like Vandy to take a win on the road with that. And then my last game I had was Illinois at Duke. Duke is better than they've ever been at football, but Illinois with Brett Bielema has actually really consistently taken strides, taken steps. I don't expect this year to be any different, and I like Illinois taking one on the road at Duke.
Last but not least, we have NFL football back with Thursday night football. And this one's going to be a banger. I don't know how it's going to go exactly, but we have the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, hosting the Dallas Cowboys, who have been all in the news since they traded Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones out here doing the most. But yeah, that's going to be a great one. Keegan, I wanted to just ask you if you had any players in this game, and if not, any UGA fantasy relevant players on your roster this year.
Absolutely. Right now I have Nick Chubb as my flex option for Houston, so we'll see how that plays out. I know he's going to get more production the earlier part of the season, more than likely. And then I also have the Eagles defense, which is littered with Georgia players, a few other SEC guys. But yes, those are my kind of Georgia leaning options for fantasy. And hopefully I fare better than the last 2 years because I'm poised for a comeback. But, like LL Cool J said, don't call it a comeback.
Yeah, and I felt like I had a pretty good draft. I've got Brock Bowers, so my team is, humbly named the Mighty Morphin Bower Rangers. But I also have Jahmyr Gibbs, not a UGA guy, but he is from Dalton, Georgia, my hometown, and he is one of the elite backs, especially in PPR leagues and fantasy these days, behind maybe Bijan and Christian McCaffrey type. He's that quality back. And then I picked up Justin Fields because as maybe he hasn't had the career that he wanted, but dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL and college football, I think really can get you a lot of points when it comes to fantasy. That is a lot of unaccounted for points. I wish he would have played more at UGA. He's getting his chance now in New York, and the Jets, they just lost the offensive lineman, but really excited to see what he's going to do. So some dogs on the rosters, and looking forward to week 1 and many weeks of fantasy and NFL football.
Yeah, and if this last game was any sign or any indication, a lot of what we wanted Justin Fields to do, Gunner's doing, and just that ability to be doing exactly what Jalen Hurts has done. And even the reason I thought Bo Nix is poised for another growth year, and that's why I drafted him, is because I think he'll get a lot of those in the red zone, mobile QB, tush pushy type plays, and I think that's where Gunner could really shine. So
absolutely. So football is in full swing. College week 2, NFL week 1. Set your lineups. You guys make sure that you check out our website. We will have articles up throughout the week, a preview. I know Keegan's going to write some things as well.
Yeah, and this Thursday, which actually I'll just fucking scrap it because this will go tomorrow. I'll post on our IG about the stream. Austin Peay doesn't exist in the game.
So you guys make sure that you tap in with us wherever you get your podcast, whether that is Apple or Spotify, and hit the website. It's got all the links across all the socials. Keegan, I appreciate you. Dog Nation, excited for week 2. And as always, guys, you know what it is.
Off the leash.
Off the leash.
I do it for the dogs.